Good morning and welcome to the County of Berks Operations Meeting for December the 10th. It is 9:30 and we will call the meeting to order. Okay, we'll start by reading the public comment notice, and Barbara, if you can please read that.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivera. Public comment will be accepted in person and through the Q&A function. Please include your first name, last name, and municipality for all comments. Any comments without name and municipality will not be considered. Each citizen can submit one comment. Comment length is dictated by limitations of the platform being used, Teams Q&A. In-person comments will be accepted first, followed by comments submitted virtually. The meeting comment period is limited to a total of 30 minutes, including both in-person and virtual comments. This time period may be extended at the discretion of the board. Please be concise. Comments that are germane to county business will be read during the meeting and should not be considered to be interactive dialogue with the commissioners. The county solicitor shall be the final arbiter of whether a comment is germane and should be read. Any commissioner response to public comment will be done at the discretion of the commissioners.
Okay, thank you very much, Barbara. We'll now move on to the approval of the minutes. Do we have any changes or additions to the minutes for November the 12th of 2024? If none, the minutes stand approved as presented. Do you have any public comment on agenda items? Okay, we'll now move on to the presentation. We have one presentation today, and we have here from Beers Hoffman, together with Moore Engineering and our COO and DCOO, will be presenting the Beers Hoffman space allocation updates and recommendations. So I'll allow everyone to introduce themselves. Before I continue, is Commissioner Leinbach online? Okay. All right. So who wants to lead? Kevin?
Good morning, Commissioners. As you're aware, last fall we had a presentation for Beers Hoffman. So this is what is effectively our annual update on the space allocation study that was supported by and continues to be supported by the board. Last fall, we went through the initial plans on both the Courthouse Services Center and the move of various departments to the South Campus. The South Campus move is on schedule. We expect to have keys to the facility by the end of February. So for move-in mid to late March of the various departments that are non-court related here in the Services Center, opening up opportunities here in the Services Center and the courthouse for what we feel is long overdue. These buildings, this building in particular, has not been touched significantly in about 35 years. Courthouse was upgraded the same period of time this building was constructed, but there are a lot of hidden jewels, as you might call them, the mechanicals, electrical, and plumbing, which we're going to discuss today as well. So phase one, again, is on schedule. So phase one is completed in spring of 2025. Then we move into phase two, and that's the reason we're here today. So I'd like to introduce our folks from Beers Hoffman: John Sue Herman, Peter Carciardo, Melissa Feathers, Michael Hunt, and Tracy Thomas from Moore Engineering. They will be doing the presentation for you, certainly open it up to questions and comments. And there are more detailed drawings and analysis that was forwarded to the board based on security. I can't hear. Based on security and other aspects, some of those documents are privileged to the Board of Commissioners. So we're going to basically be doing a 30,000-foot overview this morning. Thank you. And that wasn't me.
I'm not sure who it was and if they meant that they can't. Well, yeah, Joe says here, is the sound working online? Ashley says yes. So Joe, can you let us know if you can hear us? Can everyone else online hear us? Not sure, just want to make sure we're not leaving the people online without hearing us. They can? Okay. All right, thank you.
So I'll turn this over to our friends from Beers Hoffman and Moore Engineering.
Peter Caracciarto with Beers and Hoffman Architecture, and I will start with a quick overview of where we started and where we are today. So I believe what's on the screen right now is a spreadsheet we had prepared a little over a year ago outlining potential phasing and timing and a very high altitude budget reflecting on the department moves themselves. And this was countywide, including South Campus. What we did not include, so at that time, we were including surface level mechanical, electrical, plumbing elements like lighting within a room that would be changing, moving diffusers around and that kind of thing. What we had not yet looked at was the more central MEP systems, chillers and boilers and that type of thing. So that was not included in this study. So following that spreadsheet that we had prepared, we engaged the team at Moore Engineering here to spend several months in the beginning of this year really going top to bottom throughout both of these buildings, the courthouse and the services center. And what they prepared was a report looking at, in great detail, all of those central systems, top to bottom. And from that, maybe jump to the next spreadsheet, they presented us with some information outlining potential costs specific to the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. Now, what we pulled out here, there was some redundancy. In other words, those red boxes there would have been items that we believe were included in that initial report. The green box, however, is the central components that likely would not have been lumped into the cost estimating. So from that, we prepared a revised spreadsheet, if you don't mind flipping to the bit of a delay there. Okay, so this is where we stand today. Again, South Campus is listed there as phase 1, and we would be moving into what we're now calling phase 2. So I should explain that phase 2, we are ready to begin, or we're underway schematic design, but phase 2 consists of light renovation items that are safe to proceed with without doing the more central, very involved system replacements first. So we spent some time looking at what could logically and safely be done without wasting time having to go back later and repair anything or replace anything. So we identified a few key program areas that could work to proceed with at this time. So that's what's identified as phase 2. The future phases moving forward, this is still a work in progress, but we have spent a fair amount of time and effort figuring out a phasing schedule that could work, moving departments sequentially, time-wise, our best guess at construction timing, and we grouped those together in 2 separate potential bid packages. Obviously, the fewer bid packages, the better, so that we're ending up with multiple electrical contractors stepping on each other and that kind of thing. However, we also recognize that this will be spread out over 3, 4, 5 years realistically, and that I believe would be too long of a duration to expect one bid package here. So on this document, what we did was add a line item called central. I don't know if you can zoom in on that easily, John, central MEP. And basically we took those large ticket items and spread those out per quarter throughout what we are calling bid package number 2. Maybe you can highlight those numbers there, John. So everything in those squiggly red lines there relate to the central MEP components that would not have been included in the report that we presented last year. So that's all the central components that would be added on in scope. And the majority of those would need to take place up front. So the spread there is somewhat generic. I'm not exactly sure how that would all play out time-wise. But those are pieces that we identified would need to be done logistics wise, need to get done before spending time getting into the more end of the line components in a department or office space, for example. It makes more sense to start at the root systems. So that is where we stand today. And we have Mike and Tracy here that can explain their findings in that MEP report in more detail.
If I might, one of the things too, just to bring to your attention is these are numbers based on what Moore has presented and what Peter and his team have identified. But we do have Doug and Josh here from facilities. And when we met with them along with Rex a little while back, some of these costs are already included in our capital budget. So there are some things that were contemplated that were going to need to be done anyway. So we haven't gotten a chance to filter that out yet, but this is really kind of a worst case scenario. And then we can back out those budgeted items. So we'll do that for you in the future. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Peter.
No, thank you. Thank you, Larry. So are there any questions about this spreadsheet? Okay. I think, Mike, Tracy, if you'd like to just give a high altitude summary of your findings in the MEP study, what are some of the big ticket issues, items that are priorities to address from the very beginning?
This is Michael Hunt with Moore Engineering. We looked at the HVAC, plumbing, sprinkler, and also electrical systems of the building. The building HVAC wise, I can go over that first with the courthouse. The courthouse is sorted by a 4-pipe system, which is hot and chilled water throughout the building. Most of those all date back to the renovations he talked about like 35 years ago. Some system pieces were replaced since then and are in good condition. The boilers replaced in 2009 appear in good condition. The chillers were though original to the previous and are beyond their normal life cycle. The cooling towers also are the same way. The pumps, the hot water pumps were replaced and are in excellent condition. The chilled water pumps though are not, and we would recommend replacing those. We also, the pipe insulation we noted in there was deteriorating in some areas, and we recommend replacing the pipe insulation, and also before we finish would do designs, we would recommend that the piping also be internal condition of the piping be sampled, so possibly keep the piping systems of the building. The air handlers are in areas that are difficult to access and appear to be in fair condition, but there is parts of those that have been failing and need to be replaced, and we recommend those also be replaced as part of an upcoming renovation. So as a summary of the HVAC, we recommend the chilled water system, except for the one chiller, to be replaced. The hot water system be replaced except for the boilers and pumps that were replaced. We recommend refurbishing the air conditioning, the air handling units and fan coils, as opposed to replacing because of the difficulty to get to them. It seemed like it was a good candidate to have those refurbished. Then they could be good for another 30 years or so, or again. And then also keep the existing ductwork and diffusers and resers except where they need to be moved with the renovation areas. There's also valves that are not holding, and that even if the piping is not replaced, we recommend that the key valves be replaced throughout the system so that they can be serviced in the future and be able to maintain the system. For the plumbing in the courthouse, system is very old. The entire system, sanitary, storm, domestic water, is all very old in the system, and we recommend replacing all that piping because of its age. Some of it is what is assumed dates back to 1930s in those systems. So those we recommend being completely the domestic water, storm, sanitary systems. There has been problems where there's been renovations in those toilet rooms, and due to the low flow fixtures that we were required to do now per the code, then they have problems with those backing up in the systems because of all the rust, corrosion, debris that's in those sanitary systems of the existing building. So what we would recommend there is that new risers would be installed for sanitary, storm, domestic water. And then as we do renovations in areas, they tie into the new risers. And then as you finish up the renovations, then you remove the old risers through the building to do that system. Domestic water heating was redone there in that last renovation, but it is at the end of its life for the domestic water heating. It's a heat exchanger from the HVAC system, and we also recommend that to be replaced. The sprinkler system is in really good shape, except for the fire pump was replaced 2 years ago and is in excellent condition also. So there with the sprinkler system, we just recommend being modified as required for the renovation areas. Where there's new ceilings, it would be new sprinkler heads throughout, and the remainder system then could just remain as is. That's the courthouse. The services center is similar, but the one of the two chillers was replaced there in the services center. It's a similar system. The cooling towers also in the services center were replaced in 2016, and they're in good condition. The boilers are part of what's located in the courthouse. It also serves the services center. So that would be what we already talked about there. Also the same situation with piping insulations deteriorating. We recommend that all the piping insulation be replaced in the building, and also the piping be checked for the internals, make sure that that's still in good condition and could remain. The valves, again, are original and not holding, and we recommend that the valves in at least key locations, if not all the locations, be replaced so that everything can be serviced in the future. So there, for the services center, we recommend replacing the one chiller that hasn't been replaced, replacing any damaged pipe insulation, replacing those valves, and replacing the air handling units as part of the upcoming renovations. This would be the time to, when all the ceilings are down in those areas, then replace those HVAC air handling units and those. As far as the plumbing system for the services center, it's in much better shape than the courthouse. The piping system, the risers all seem to be in good condition compared to the courthouse. There hasn't been the problems with the backing up in the systems and those. But what the fixtures and the water heaters, and what each floor has its own water heater, circulating pump, and controls for those water heaters for each floor of gang toilet rooms that are in each floor. And those are past their useful life, and they've already been in certain floors that have been replaced and renovated. The new fixtures, new water heaters, new circulating pumps for that floor. So what we recommend is to continue that and do that on every floor, where it hasn't been done already, hasn't been replaced, and replace those items that are at the end of the life and sometimes failing in different areas. The sprinkler system is the same situation as the courthouse, but that fire pump hasn't been replaced. And with that, then we recommend replacing that fire pump, and then also doing the heads in the areas of renovation where there's new ceilings, and then redoing those areas as per the renovated walls, ceilings areas for those parts of the building. Now, turn it over to Tracy to talk about the electrical.
Okay, so for the main infrastructure of the electrical, the only thing that's really going to be in this current project scope is replacement of branch panel boards that don't have enough circuits, adding circuits, maybe adding some additional panel boards where we have a whole lot of renovations and we need a lot of pole space within those panel boards. Could be that also to support some of the mechanical renovations, the equipment that's being upgraded. We may need to upgrade circuits in those existing panel boards, feeders to the units. So that'll be in both buildings, the main infrastructure for electrical. There may be, well, we know that there's some floors that are having significant renovations, and those will be adding panel boards for sure, to pick up additional circuits for the renovations that are being done. So we just want to look at the courthouse. The existing courthouse lighting is almost all incandescent and fluorescent. And so all of those will be replaced with LED fixtures. The Tralford type fixtures, office type fixtures will be replaced with new LED fixtures, and some of the vintage decorative type lighting fixtures will get LED bulbs basically to replace those decorative incandescent bulbs. The controls will be upgraded as well, and that'll be throughout the building. And it will be using the Lutron system, which is already taking place in the services center. In the services center, there already is the LED upgrades happening throughout the building and controls throughout the building. So in the services center, the only areas where we'll really be doing much with the lighting would be where we have renovations happening. In those places, we'll be renovating controls, moving things around, but that won't be like the main infrastructure. That's already being done for the lighting in the services center. So back in the courthouse, the generator, we looked at that. That is to a point where it needs replacement because of maintenance issues that'll be happening now that it's of the age that it is. But that is not included in this current project scope. That's slated for another project. Did talk about lighting. So wherever we have renovations happening on the different floors, we'll be adding telecom, data. All of that will be included in this scope. Fire alarm, we have pretty new fire alarm systems, but those will have to be upgraded for the renovated areas. So just adding devices and moving things, maybe adding some battery cabinets to support more horn strobes or speaker strobes. So that'll be true in both buildings. For the most part, the electrical is going to be in support of those renovated areas, adding receptacles, adding data outlets, moving fire alarm and security devices, and also adding branch panel boards or circuits within the existing panel boards to support the mechanical and plumbing renovations. So that pretty much covers the electrical.
Thank you, Tracy and Mike. Do you have any questions related to the MEP report, the findings specifically? Okay, and I think if we have a few more minutes this time, John will walk through some plans and scope related to this upcoming project, phase 2, which is South Campus being phase 1.
Thank you, Pete. So several additions and modifications have been made from last meetings. Those changes have all been reflected onto the phasing schedule as shown on the screen there. I'll just quickly go over them. On the services center, on the 4th floor, a new courtroom, jury deliberation room, a judge's retiring room, and a judge's chambers layout. On the 8th floor, a space which was originally allocated for MHDD would be converted into shared spaces. So these would include hoteling rooms, hoteling spaces, a multi-purpose room, and conference rooms. In the courthouse, we're proposing plans to kind of expand the existing courtroom on the 3rd floor. This would include several meeting rooms, a jury deliberation room, and expansion of one of the existing judge's chamber. On the 6th floor, we're proposing to renovate the temporary courtroom into something more permanent, to also include a judge's retiring room, a small meeting room, and also a holding cell. Currently, the upper levels of the law library are underutilized. Originally, it was proposed that the 8th floor of the originally proposed to be on the 8th floor of the services center. The 10th floor mezzanine, the 11th floor, and the 12th floor would be converted and renovated for family court to also include 3 larger new hearing rooms. And then lastly, currently scattered throughout aging on the 8th floor now of the services center, the 13th floor of the courthouse would be allocated for MHDD. This would include 10 new private office spaces, reception and waiting area, as well as a conference room and break room. With the proposed renovation of the courtroom on the 3rd floor of the courthouse, 2 new judges' chambers would be relocated up to the 16th floor with the shared break room and also a conference room. So this concludes kind of the changes that's been made from our last meeting. And as you may know, phase 1 is currently under construction, South Campus. Once completed in February, follow departments, the BCPC, IDA, Economic Development, Aging, Assessment, and Mapping will be relocated over to South Campus. Following this relocation, I think our intent is for us to begin phase 2 work as outlined on this phasing schedule shown there. Phase 2 would encompass the following department and scope of work. That includes the creation of a satellite office of election services down on the 1st floor, as well as a rework of the security checkpoint. Jury assembly and earthrise on the 2nd floor, domestic relations on the 6th floor, the commissioner's boardroom on the 13th floor. As you can see, just a quick 3D perspective view to reflect kind of a new fixed commissioner's desk. And then also here in the services center, public restrooms on the 16th floor. And lastly, in the courthouse, the sheriff's department on the 3rd and 17th floor. So thank you.
Any questions about the scope of this upcoming phase? A lot of information.
Yeah, no question. I have no questions.
Commissioners, if we might, just to put a point on a couple of things, the changes that were described, particularly with the courts, were done in consultation with the courts. We spent a lot of time trying to work our way through. We do have 1 or 2 open-ended pieces, but those will be in later phases. So it's not so critical that we get them resolved today. We're still working with the courts on a few items, but for the most part, our department heads have been fully engaged. We've had multiple meetings with them and numerous iterations of drawings to make sure that as we refine the process, that people understand what they're getting and that we've accurately captured what their needs are, not just now, but in the future. And we're very, very excited about this project getting underway.
And we've begun to take the various department heads over to the South Campus for a tour now that many of the walls are up in the office area. We had AAA over Area Agency on Aging last Wednesday. We're going to be taking assessment over on the 18th, so they get a feel. They've seen the drawings and the diagrams, but until they actually walk the floor and kind of kick the tires, as you might say, a lot of people are excited about getting to the South Campus next spring. So working in conjunction with legal and purchasing to work on all the contracts with the moving company and furniture and all of it. There's a lot of moving parts involved in moving these departments over there. So we're going to be working, I think, this week yet on scheduling as to which department, how and why we'll be moved. We got to set some placeholders time-wise so people can start to pack up, start to shred, start to dispose of things they don't need. We don't want to move anything over there. It doesn't have to be moved.
Yeah.
I think just lastly, I think we would like to frankly thank the board because this is a major, major undertaking. This is something that, as Peter and John referenced, and Michael as well, on the courthouse side, I mean, we have things that haven't been touched since the 1930s when the building was constructed. Here we are nearly 100 years later. I think we've gotten our money's worth for the most part.
Yeah.
But if we want these buildings to be able to service the needs presently, but the needs looking down the line, we said hopefully when we embarked on this at your direction, the goal was to provide a fix and a plan going forward to accommodate the county's needs for the next 25 to 30 years. So what we're doing is, yes, there's an impact financially and it's significant and it's real. But that will, as you look at it over the period of time, it's going to be well worth the investment. So we know the MEP issues were not really part of the original discussion. That's why we felt it was important to bring more engineering in to talk to you a little bit more about those costs. But again, it's extremely important that if we're going to do the cosmetic fixes, that we do the mechanical fixes as well. And as we referenced earlier, we've been working with facilities over the last couple of years now, and some of this stuff was already on their radar and is in the capital plan. So we'll, as we said, we'll work our way through that, and where we can pull some of those duplications out, we'll do that. But we're very much appreciative of your support.
A few questions. One, we look at the costs here, are they adjusted for inflation? So we won't come to year 4 and say, well, we didn't 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 3 million. Now it's actually 5 million because of inflation, and we didn't account for that. So just want to make sure we're looking at numbers that are going to be somewhat the same. I know you can't say what costs will rise, but is there something built in there?
I think the short answer is no, although we do have a conservative contingency built in across the board, I believe.
Yeah.
And I should mention, I think we're also including some numbers for construction management, which I know is more internal at this point. So, but short answer is no, we did not include any inflation related to timing at this point.
And I think that's important. I'd like to see whatever that number is, it's going to happen. I'm not sure what that number is, what's being used, but when we look at our budget, and correct me, when we look at our capital projects, we look at the numbers that are adjusted for inflation in our budget. Yeah, but like, it's important to see the same thing here. So is it 56 million, or is it actually going to be 66 million? You know, what is that going to be, so that we can plan properly for that?
That makes sense.
Okay. Another thing I like, Ted, and I know Kevin was mentioning the furniture that needs, some will be moved, others not. Just want to be cognizant on, this is a big amount, and excuse me, it's important to do now rather than doing all the cosmetics and then having to reopen the walls and do the plumbing and mechanical and so forth. But I will ask that on the furniture side that we reuse what we can reuse. I know some things, by the time you take them apart and move them over and set them back up in another location, may not be worth doing that. But whatever we can remain here and reuse here, rather than saying, well, we'd like to have new furniture, that'd be great. Let's, keep what we have for now, as long as it's in good working condition. I know at some locations, definitely primarily the South Campus will probably need a lot of newer furniture there because of can't really move all the furniture there. But one area to be keep in mind.
Yep. So for South Campus, a decent chunk of the furniture that's being moved over our existing furniture the departments currently have. That was one of our main priorities. I think about 30% of the furniture going to South Campus would be new furniture.
Okay, good. Comment?
I have no questions. I just thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. Very informative and look forward to working with you moving forward. Appreciate it. And thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I know, how long have we been working on this now? A little over a year? Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be a long-term project, but again, something that after 30, 35 years, you just can't keep on postponing and postponing and postponing, especially the MEP, because they wake up winter morning and find out that we're out of heat, or hot summer day and no air conditioning, and will affect all of our operations. So after 30, 35 years, we have gotten a lot out of the mechanical part. So I do understand the need to replace them while we're doing the cosmetic and the moving around. That's the best time to get it all done, rather than have to reopen and inconvenience and move around the staff because something may happen because we didn't get it done when we could have. So thank you for your work. Thank you for coming in. Larry, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have for this morning.
That's all they have. Okay. Do you have any public comment? Nothing? Okay. No public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.